China, one of the world's greatest and oldest civilizations, called itself Zhongguo, the Middle Kingdom. Over the centuries, it created a complex, sophisticated culture that emphasized order and harmony. And part of that culture was a system of healthcare radically different from that of the West. Today, traditional Chinese medicine is practiced far beyond China's borders. How did that happen? What is Chinese medicine? Does it really work? And if it does, how? When most people think of Chinese medicine, they think of one thing: acupuncture.
The fact that somebody by twirling needles can alleviate pain is just such a stunning visual image. I mean, how can you not look at it and say, either, wow, that is really interesting, or that is really strange?
The Western world unexpectedly got that look in the early 1970s. Richard Nixon made world history with the first visit to communist China by an American president. Reporter James Reston from the New York Times went early to cover the preparations. But then he came down with appendicitis.
Reston had appendectomy with regular surgery, but he had post-operative pain, and they brought in an acupuncturist, and he wrote an article that made the front page of the New York Times saying how my post-operative pain was cured by acupuncture. And that's pretty startling. That's like having one of the leading thinkers in America say he went to a witch doctor and got cured.
If you have appendicitis, I personally would like to get that appendix taken out before it bursts. But if I'm suffering from chronic nausea or pain, Chinese medicine might be useful.
This pain is on his left back, all the way from...
One of the biggest differences in terms of treatment is that biomedicine relies heavily on surgery, and surgery is not a part of classical Chinese medicine.
Halfway, huh?
Chinese medicine relies on manipulation of the body from the outside, whether that be acupuncture needles put through the skin, or moxibustion, or massage, or the ingestion of herbs.
You see, that's good.
From the moment Reston's article appeared, Chinese medicine took root in the West in a way that it never had before. Traditional Chinese medicine soon became one of the fastest-growing medical professions in the U.S.
That spot's tender, too.
Okay, so now we're going to do UV17 on the right side,
Okay.
Qi and blood.
Marjan Mirbaha is a student at the American College of Traditional Chinese Medicine in San Francisco.
One thing I love about being a Chinese medicine practitioner and acupuncturist is to be able to treat people that have tried so many things and they still have, ankle pain, for example, and nothing they've done has worked. And then they come to see us and they come to our clinic, and acupuncture, they respond so well to acupuncture and herbs, and within a few treatments, this ankle pain they've had for 20 years is gone. And that to me is very rewarding.
Marjan's father is a doctor, her mother is a nurse, her brother is a medical student, and her sister sells pharmaceutical products. The health field was a natural for Marjan, but her particular choice took her family by surprise.
I sort of got a mixed response from my parents. My mom was ultra supportive, and my dad, he's from Iran, and he's very strict and conservative, and he, I think, didn't understand. I think the first thing he said to me was, why are you studying Chinese medicine? Why don't you just go to physical therapy school?
Just follow this channel, okay? Follow this channel.
Marjan's fellow student, Bill Mosca, had to overcome his own doubts when an acupuncturist friend offered to treat him for back pain.
I went into that experience being a complete skeptic. I came out of that experience fascinated and absolutely convinced of the healing capabilities of acupuncture and Chinese medicine.
Acupuncturists insert special thin needles at particular points in the body, often far from the source of pain. The hundreds of acupuncture points are found along a set of lines called meridians.
How does a point on your toe, do something for your stomach. Each organ has a matching meridian, and the energy of that organ runs through this meridian, and that's how I'm able to access it from the toe. A meridian is the energetic pathway on the exterior of the body, slightly below the skin surface, that contains the qi and blood of a specific organ.
Qi is at the heart of Chinese medicine and the philosophy of Taoism that it draws from. Qi refers to energy, but is almost impossible to translate.
Qi represents a way of looking at the world that we don't have in the West. The translation of qi that I like best is that of material force. Qi is both the stuff that makes up everything and the potential of that stuff to change, to grow, to transform, to be born and to die.
Some people translate it as life force, but that's actually not accurate because rocks have qi, mountain has qi, the ocean has a kind of qi. All phenomena transforms into other phenomena. We take food, it becomes the energy that we lift chairs with, or it becomes the prayers that we ask the creator of the universe to change the way things are. So qi is a statement of interconnectedness.
Whether it's through acupuncture, herbal remedies, or movements such as Tai Chi and Qigong, Chinese medicine is largely devoted to harnessing qi to achieve harmony.
According to Chinese medicine, you obtain health when everything in your body is in equilibrium. So illness occurs because there's some deficiency in some part of your body or some excess in some part of your body, which has thrown the bodily system out of harmony.
I think the Chinese concept of harmony has to be translated as dynamic harmony. What's harmony for a ballerina is different for a construction worker. There's a way that harmony means that we try to be appropriate to the situation, appropriate to the time of the day, appropriate to the month, the year, our age, our occupation, our family relationships. So the practitioner is looking to move the energies in the body. Simultaneously, you want to make sure you move them in relation to the context of a person's life.
The Chinese system, they're talking about key points for qi or energy flow. The Western scientist looks at that and sort of takes a sizable dose of skepticism, because that kind of energy flow is not something you can demonstrate with any quantitative techniques.
Along with other groundbreaking work, neuroscientist David Felton has been at the forefront of scientific research to test and understand Chinese medical practices.
With Western testing, we know there are certain aspects of stimulation of some of those meridians that have very precise and very stunning effects. Can we give you the mechanistic route by which stimulation of those points activates some pathway that goes to some part of the brain or such and such an organ? No, we don't know that yet. But will we someday? I have confidence that we will.
Hi, Jessica.
Hi.
Are you coming in today for left shoulder pain?
I am. Last week I moved and my shoulder's bothering me today, so today is the worst day.
Okay.
For Marjan's patient, Jessica Moeller, how acupuncture works is less important than her personal experience that it works.
10 years ago, I was injured playing soccer, and after going through almost 2 years of traditional treatment, cortisone shots and physical therapy, and you name it, I had it, and nothing worked.
Any pain, stiffness?
Just stiffness. I remember sitting in the room with my father, and the ortho surgeon said to me, "We're just going to make an incision from your knee to your ankle on both sides of your leg. There'll be a 10% chance that you can walk without pain again, and a 5% chance that you'll play soccer again. No problem at all." And that's, I think, when my father stepped in as the parent and said, "No way."
I'd like to do GB20 for her neck stiffness. Left side GB21, because that seems to be where her pain originates right now.
Okay.
And it takes a little while to heal, but the good thing with Chinese medicine is that once we've brought the person back to balance, they don't have to spend a lifetime on medication.
Going into the treatment for the first time, I didn't expect it to work. I didn't really care because nothing else had worked.
Okay, we're going to do this on the exhale.
Okay.
Go ahead and breathe in.
My only assumption was that it was going to hurt. But at that point, I was in so much pain, I could have cared less. And I was expecting the needles to be, like a hypodermic needle. And of course they weren't. It was great. I felt really relaxed. I can't feel anything.
For Western science, the jury is still out on how many conditions acupuncture can treat. Studies have confirmed its effectiveness for nausea, dental pain, and migraine headaches. But results with other forms of pain are inconclusive, and research continues.
We need to test it rigorously, especially with randomized controlled trials if we can. I want to see what is the evidence that they do biologically what is being claimed.
How are the other points feeling?
They feel good.
What works for patients is a different question than what works for a scientist. Is it because of the acupuncture needle? Is it because of the placebo effect? Is it because of the attention? For science, it has to be more than a placebo effect. That's the method that has to work. For a practitioner, we don't care. It's the outcome that matters.
So I'm going to put this on you to help move your chi and blood.
For me personally, the reason why I know that it's not just the placebo and the acupuncture is because I think I would have gotten better with physical therapy or anything else, but it was really something about the acupuncture that worked.
If the two pillars of Western medicine are surgery and drugs, the two pillars of Chinese medicine are acupuncture and herbs.
You look at traditional Chinese herbal medicine. That's pharmacology at its finest. Only it's a little more complicated than typical pharmacology. Western pharmacology likes to look at one drug with a specific structure that acts on very specific receptors on certain types of cells and provokes a very specific type of change.
And what the Chinese did was take one herb, keep its dose high enough so it would have an effect, but low enough so it wouldn't have too much side effects. Then take another herb that had the same positive effect but had a different side effect. Then take another herb that had a counter effect to the side effect. And actually what they do is keep building and building, so many prescriptions have 10, 15, even 20 herbs, where you're potentiating, increasing, synergizing the positive effects, decreasing, minimizing the negative effects.
Chinese herbal medicine is undoubtedly the most complex aspect of the medicine. We need to know their various properties, their tastes, their temperatures. These are qualities that Chinese medicine assigns to each herb. We're required to learn well over 300 different herbs, their grasses or seeds, but we also use a whole range of plant-based herbs, such as barks of trees, roots, leaves. We also use some animal products in formulas, abalone or oyster shells, scorpions, earthworms, even the carcasses of cicadas.
Though there are pre-packaged Chinese herbal remedies, formulas are usually made to order for each patient.
We put together formulas based on an individual, and it's quite possible that you'll never produce two of the same formula in a whole career of Chinese medicine.
There are some components in traditional Chinese herbal medicine that have remarkable beneficial effects that actually stimulate antiviral and anti-tumor responses. They're absolutely fascinating.
The civilization that invented paper compiled its core medical theories and practices into one document around 200 BC. The Yellow Emperor's Inner Canon of Internal Medicine is still being read today.
The Yellow Emperor's Inner Canon is comparable to the writings of doctors such as Hippocrates for the Western tradition, in the sense that this is the text that doctors refer back to when they want to explain how did their system of knowledge come into being.
The Yellow Emperor's Classic describes another deceptively simple idea, like qi, that's fundamental to Chinese medicine: yin and yang. The Yellow Emperor calls them the founding principles of the universe. Chinese medicine uses yin and yang in diagnosis to help move patients toward balance, harmony, and therefore health.
Yin is passive, slow, weak, thin, shady. Yang is assertive, aggressive, dynamic, forceful, sunny. A person is a combination of yin and yang all the time, meaning they're always in dynamic flux and they're always changing.
The best way to understand yin and yang is to avoid thinking of them as things. They're not things, they're attributes that describe how two things might be related to one another. So, for example, tall and short. Tall only exists in relation to short because height is relative. Okay, so I could be very tall in relation to my 5-year-old, but I'm short in relation to, Shaquille O'Neal. So things are not yin and yang. Things are yin and yang in relation to other things. So day is yang and night is yin. But within day, you have early dawn, which is yin, in relation to noon, which is yang. And also things can transform into each other. So day turns into night, turns into day. And yin can turn into yang, which can turn into yin.
It took me 3 years to see yin and yang or dampness the way I can see the color of the shirt. Chinese family I lived with when I lived in Asia, they saw yin and yang all the time. It's part of their language. But it was like, oh my God, it's that simple on some level, the way I see a blue shirt. But that takes, for a Westerner, takes a certain amount of training.
I'm going to take a look at your tongue and take your pulses.
Chinese practitioners truly use their diagnosing skills to diagnose the entire person. So even though I was coming in for knee pain or shoulder pain or allergies or what have you, they look at that, but then they also look at the entire body and they get a picture from the whole rather than just, this is shoulder pain and everyone's shoulder pain is the same and we're going to treat it exactly the same and everyone recovers in 6 to 8 weeks with 6 to 8 weeks of physical therapy and a cortisone shot and a little bit of Advil and there you're good to go.
The Western system is based on taking things apart and understanding what individual things are composed of. And the Chinese system is much more focused on the interaction between the body parts and also the interaction of the body with the environment so that no one thing can stand in isolation from anything else.
What brings you here? What do you want us to work on today?
I don't think I'm sleeping that well, and it's been recurrent. So
If the philosophy behind Chinese medicine is different from that of the West, so is the medical practice, from initial exam to diagnosis to treatment.
What do you see?
Slightly swollen,
Scallops.
Scallop?
Pale.
quivering.
Pale?
And it's slightly enlarged.
Yeah. So let's take her pulse.
It's very important feedback that we respond to the tongue and the pulse.
Somewhat weak.
Which position?
All positions, it's weak pulse.
What about the left guan, the liver position? How does that feel?
It also feels slippery.
When we feel the pulse, does it feel choppy? Is it irregular? Does it feel like a flood? All those things tell us what is the basic quality of a person.
Yeah, because her spleen qi is deficient. That means that the spleen doesn't produce enough blood to nourish in the heart. So she got insomnia.
Do you think this is a case of liver overacting spleen?
The liver and the spleen is a pair, pair organs.
From a Western point of view, we take organs literally. We take them as an anatomical structure located in a certain part of the body. When somebody is talking about dampness of the spleen as a diagnosis, that makes no sense from a Western point of view, but it does make sense as a metaphor from an Eastern point of view.
Though diagnosis is based on metaphor and image, it often leads to successful treatment.
We're going to be tonifying your heart blood, nourishing your heart blood, tonifying your spleen qi, and smoothing your liver qi.
Is that a lot?
All the herbs of Chinese medicine, all the acupuncture points are described in terms of how they affect dampness, how they affect spleen, how they affect fire, how they affect wind, how they affect yin and yang. The entire edifice of Chinese medicine is built around these images, and then the treatments are all coordinated by these images.
Can you feel that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
As far as Western medicine goes, I think the two systems are very hard to integrate theoretically. The theories on how they work are so different. It's sort of been a challenge throughout the education to step back and learn, okay, no, the lungs don't really do this, they do this. And that's been kind of hard, but, like day after day, time and time again, I see it work.
Ironically, it was a strange combination of West and East, a sort of yin and yang, that brought Chinese medicine to its current position of international prominence. By the early 20th century, Chinese medicine had fallen into decline, and so had the national government. For decades, Christian missionaries had brought surgical and vaccination skills to the Chinese countryside, while Western governments gobbled up territory. In response, China tried to modernize, and the emperor even banned the teaching of acupuncture at one point. In the 1920s, many young leaders argued that Chinese medicine was a primitive relic. But when a civil war tore the country apart in the 1930s, one side, the communist forces under Mao Zedong, began to see Chinese medicine in a different light.
The Chinese communists first really came into contact with traditional medical practices when they were trying to build up guerrilla bases in the countryside. And among the people in the countryside, very few people had any sort of access to or knowledge of Western medicine, and they were using traditional practices. Acupuncture was seen as the ideal medicine for these areas because it was cheap and it was portable. You just needed some needles and some alcohol and some swabs. And so for practical reasons, the Chinese communists supported this.
In 1949, the Chinese communists won the Civil War. Their new government set up teaching hospitals, which simplified and standardized theories and practices. It also developed electroacupuncture and introduced scientific elements such as anatomy. When the United States and China opened diplomatic relations after President Nixon's visit, traditional Chinese medicine was an established discipline ready for export. And Westerners were ready to receive it.
Because of the countercultural movements in the 1960s, Americans were looking for healing techniques that were not based in Western culture. They were looking for religions and spiritual practices that were not based in Judeo-Christianity. And so there was a real enthusiasm for things coming from the Orient. And ironically, one of the things that made Chinese medicine so appealing to a Western audience, particularly Americans, is that it seemed to be ancient and timeless and spiritual and unchanging. And at the very same point in time, the Chinese government was trying to make it more scientific, more systematic, more rational, and less spiritual, if you will.
By the 1990s, Westerners increasingly turned to Chinese medicine and other alternative approaches. Major scientific institutions took note, from the World Health Organization to the National Institute of Health.
Now tell me when I hit the worst spot.
And as research began to confirm the effectiveness of some Chinese medicine practices, increasing numbers of Western doctors began to integrate them into their own work.
It's been demonstrated that Tai Chi movement will decrease falls in the elderly by 70%, 70%. That's stunning. There's no other approach that even comes close. So when you find out acupuncture works for something, when you find out that traditional Chinese herbal treatments work, why would you not use them?
My dad, he herniated discs in his back last year. I came home and I offered treatment, and it's just sort of something he's not that interested in. On the other hand, my brother had a migraine headache during Christmas, and that was great for me because I got to put 2 needles in. His headache was gone. He felt great. His needles were nowhere near his head. You know, one was in his hand, one was in his foot, and that was really fun.
The human capacity to understand disease and health is much larger than we can even begin to think about. And there's no monopoly of truth, east or west.
Because I've been so lucky to have acupuncture as, something that's been part of my life for so long, I'm rarely sick. But when that time does come, I usually consult both sides because I want both perspectives. I don't want just, good health, I want optimum health. So when it comes to myself and my body, I'm going to go for the best of both worlds.
Chinese medicine is not some magic bullet that's going to come and solve all the problems that Western medicine couldn't solve. It's a big collection of healing techniques that people have used to try to cure themselves and try to preserve health. And over the centuries, people in China have been consciously picking and choosing from these techniques. And now, today in the United States, we're doing the same thing.
And I think ultimately we're going to find a medium where many of the culturally specific approaches, traditional Chinese medicine approaches included, and Western practices, and perhaps some universal practices like meditation will turn out to be the best approach. And then that to me is no longer alternative or complementary, it's just good medicine.